we have sort of a non-politician here. Senator David Ige is our guest. He's chairman of the State Senate Ways and Means Committee from Pearl City. And he's also a candidate for governor. And so we're going to have a wide-ranging conversation with David Ige tonight. And on behalf of F.A.P.E Now, thank you for agreeing to be on this program and coming from the volleyball game over here. And welcome to F.A.P.E Now.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Now, we were talking off air because what has intrigued me about you is that you're really the non-politician politician who somehow has ended up running for governor. But you're sort of an unassuming guy. And apparently you were apolitical. And how did it is that you got appointed to the legislature in, I'm seeing my notes here, in 1985?
Yes. Yeah.
But the day before you were appointed, you have no idea you were going to be appointed. Explain.
Absolutely.
How did that happen?
It actually occurred in 1985. It was on the Friday after Thanksgiving. You know, in the course of literally one day, I went from being apolitical to being appointed to the House of Representatives. You know, a high school classmate called me at 7:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. You know, I was a supervising engineer at Hawaiian Telephone at that time. I was in my fourth year there. A high school friend calls me at 7:30 in the morning, and he said, you know, would you be interested in getting involved in politics? And I said, oh, no, not really. And he called me back and he said, no, really though, if you had a chance, would you be interested? And I said, well, yeah, I guess if there was an opportunity, I might be interested. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, he hangs up, he calls me back and he says, well, you know, can you meet with this guy, James Kumagai? He's the chairman of the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. So I said, yeah, I'll be happy to meet with him. I hang up and the phone rings and it's, hi, I'm James Kumagai. I'm chairman of the Democratic Party. I'd like to come. Can I come over and talk with you? I'll be there at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So he comes over at 10 o'clock and he's sitting there and he's talking to me about the history of the Democratic Party and about, you know, a lot of the social changes that occurred and, you know, the vision of the party. And he kind of went on and on for about 2 hours. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, what did my friend get me into?
Right.
And then at the end of 2 hours, about noon, he goes, you know, the governor has asked me, there's a vacancy in the House of Representatives. The governor has asked me to put together a short list, and I'd like to add your name to that list. And at that time, James Kumagai had said that, you know, he's going to submit 3 names to the governor.
Right.
One is a young person that asked to be appointed. He wants to get involved with politics. Mm-hmm. There's another name that's a committed Democratic Party, old-timer, really committed, done a lot.
Because Pearl City has been a long-time Democratic hotbed. A lot of old-time Democrats live in Pearl City to this day.
Right,
okay.
Even to the
okay.
And then he said, and you'd be the third name. You know, somebody young that might be good to get involved with politics, but probably wouldn't otherwise.
Okay.
So it's noon. So I tell him, well, I got to talk to my wife. So I call my wife.
That would help, right?
That's absolutely.
You've been married for 31 years. Right?
Absolutely,
okay.
31 years. So I call my wife, Dawn, and I go, you know, I just met with this guy from the Democratic Party. He's coming to there's a vacancy in the House. He wants to add me to the list. So my wife goes, oh, you ought to do it. It'll help you with your next promotion. And they'll never pick you, right? And I said, well, I don't want to do it if I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So she goes, well, what do you have to do? And I said, well, I don't think I have to do anything. So she goes, well, go ahead. I mean, you know, if you're interested, go ahead and do it. So I called Dr. Kumagai back, and I said, yeah, it's okay. So he hangs up, and I'm in my office. This is the same day. So he calls me back about 15 minutes later. He says, the governor wants to meet you at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So I called my wife, and I said, the governor wants to meet me. And she goes, oh, what are you wearing?
Of course.
You know, and go buy an Aloha shirt from Liberty House. I said, I'm not going to go buy a shirt just to meet the governor. But, you know, so Kumagai comes back at, you know, just before 4, and we're walking over to meet with the governor. He goes, here, you have to sign this. And I go, okay, what is it? And he says, well, it's a Democratic Party card. You know, you have to be a member. So I signed the party card. I asked him, what do I have to do? He said, no, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay anything. Just sign the card. So I signed the card. We walked across, Hawaiian Telephone was across the street from Washington Place.
Right.
We walked through the back gate at Washington Place, and I sat, and I met with the governor. I met Governor Ariyoshi at that time. It was the first time I met him. I never met
Never
Governor.
shook his hand or ever?
No. And so we sat and we talked, and he gave me the abbreviated version of the history of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And after about 15 minutes or so, he said, "I'd like to appoint you to the House of Representatives." And I said, "I have to check with my job," because I didn't talk to anybody.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I had planned.
Right.
So, he goes, "Well, why don't you check?" He said, "We'd like to make an announcement at 5:30 this afternoon." So I'm walking back with James Kumugai, and I say, I got to check with my boss. I walk back to my office. This is the Friday after Thanksgiving, so I call my boss. I'm the acting boss. I was a supervising engineer, so I call my boss at home, and I go, I don't know how to explain this. I just met with the governor. There's a vacancy in the House. They would like to appoint me, so can I do this? And he goes, "Well, I don't know." So I hang up the phone, and the clock's ticking. It's 5 o'clock.
Right.
The phone rings. I pick it up. It's my boss and the director of engineering and the vice president of engineering. And so they go, "We're talking. What are you working on?" At that time, I was supervising engineer for the neighbor island digital modernization. So he's going, and we talk about what we're working on. And after about 5-10 minutes, they go, "You're too busy. You can't do that." So I called Dr. Kumugai back, and I said, "Thank you for the consideration, but I can't do this." And he goes, "Well, can I check on it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Be my guest." And and clock's ticking. It's getting 5:20, 5:25. The phone rings. I pick it up, and it's, "Hi, I'm Charlie Crane, president of Hawaiian Telephone. I just got off the phone with the governor, and he says he wants to appoint you to the House of Representatives." And he goes, "Do you want to do that?" So I talked with Charlie Crane for a little bit, and then he said, "Well, if the governor wants to appoint you, if you want to do this, you'll have the full support of the company." And do
you have any idea what George Ariyoshi said to Charlie Crane?
I have no idea. I do,
Because engineering wasn't really enthusiastic about it at the time.
No, engineering was not enthusiastic at the time. The governor, when I met with him, he asked whether I would run for re-election. I told him I didn't know because I didn't know if I would like it. And he just said, "Well, would you keep an open mind?" I said, "Most certainly. We can discuss it after the session." He made the announcement the next day. I was not, I was apolitical. There was a lot of things happening. If you remember, that was Arnold Morgado's seat.
Right.
So rest is history.
You were sitting and today, from 1985 till today, 2013,